Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here on the show, I'd like to remind everyone to please give a like and subscribe down below if you enjoy this content. We greatly appreciate it. We have Sam Branum here on the show with us. You can follow her on Instagram by one of the greatest names we've ever heard, the Lifting Llama. She's also an NASM, I should say, certified personal trainer. You can also go follow her apparel, Unique Strength Supply. Definitely go and check those guys out. I'll leave a link down below. She's also coming to us from Houston, but most importantly, she's our current guest on the show. Sam, great to have you on.
Thanks. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what got you started into that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Okay, so growing up, I swam competitively from the age of like 6 to 15. And then after that, I kind of like dabbled in like a little bit of CrossFit, a little bit of rock climbing, but I never did anything like competitive. Then I got to college and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like my major is mechanical engineering, so like I'm not fitness, health related as far as my major goes, so I was just kind of lost, didn't really have any goals. Anyway, about I think junior year, so 2 years ago, I was like dating this guy. It's kind of like a weird story, but I was dating this guy who was in the Air Force, and like he needed to be strong, and so I started going to the gym with him and like learned how to lift weights. Kind of like got into like bodybuilding ish. Like I never competed or anything, but like that's kind of the workouts that I followed. I was doing a lot of cardio, eating very low carb, and let's see, last summer I was like, you know what, screw this. Me and that guy broke up, and I was like, I want to get big and I want to get strong, and so I just started eating like all the carbs. I started lifting all the weights, and I made friends with this girl in the gym who was a powerlifter, and I was like, wow, this seems really cool. And then I went to a powerlifting meet, and it was the most supportive environment I've ever been in before. Everybody was just so excited for other people, and they just wanted you to like be your personal best, and like they just wanted you to be the best person you can be. And I was like, I fuck with this. I definitely like want to be a part of like this. I think that this is my thing. So I started powerlifting like officially about 4 months ago, and I have a coach, and my first meet, aka competition, is in November.
That's awesome. So I like to get this out of the way first of all. Your name on Instagram is the Lifting Llama, which is one of the greatest names I've ever had on the show for sure. How did that name come to be?
Okay, so I'm a certified personal trainer, and I personal train at the Recreation Center at University of Houston. And they did like this campaign where they took pictures of us, and then they like put them on flyers and put them all around the university. It was like whatever our personal like mantra was. So mine was, I'm here to grow. Anyway, the picture that they took of me like doing a lunge, literally my face looked like a llama. And I saw it and I was like, oh my fuck. I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I made a meme out of myself and I put it on my Instagram just for giggles, you know? I was just like, this is hilarious. Anyway, one day I come into work and my supervisor sees me from like across the gym and he just yells at the top of his lungs, it's the Lifting Llama! Anyway, and I walked up to the desk and he was like, you have to make that your Instagram name now. And I was like, you know what, maybe I will. And so I did, and now it's been over a year. And people literally will come up to me and they'll be like, oh my god, you're the llama girl from Instagram. I'm like, yeah, I have a name, but it's cool.
You definitely got to make t-shirts out of that. Just if you have like a llama that's like doing deadlifts or squats or something like that, that's the perfect idea right there. I mean, that's an eye-catching name too. So it's really, it works perfect on all ways. But one of the things that I love to say is that when you start working out and go to a gym, if you go to a gym with 100 people in it, there's 100 different ways that people have gotten to the way that they've gotten, whether it comes to reps, whether it comes to what workouts they use, what their nutrition is like. Was that a struggle for you early on, sort of finding out what worked best for you specifically? Because like I said, everyone's built so differently when it comes to what they need to eat or what they need to train in order to look the way they look.
It definitely was, because I don't think I knew what I wanted. So when I first started, I think I weighed probably 135 pounds, maybe 140 pounds. I'm 5'9". And I was doing a lot, like I said, I was doing a lot of cardio because I thought that I needed to lose weight, quote unquote, and I didn't know. So I was eating low carb. I did like, I don't know, one of like, you know, Christian Guzman from like Alpha or whatever, he did a summer shredding, and I did that, and I was dieting down, and I just was kind of miserable all the time. And I was still lifting weights, but like I said, I didn't really know what I wanted. And I think it's a lot of trial and error, honestly, like figuring out what works for you. I get a lot of DMs from people that are like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this, and I'm like, honestly, it's gonna take the works best for your body. So as soon as I said, like, okay, I want to get strong and I want to get big, whenever I started eating, I'm a high carb diet person. So for me, high carb works really well with my body. That is not the case for everyone. I'm not on my high carb course, but like for me, it works. And so as soon as I figured out that, I was like, okay, I can have high energy, I can build muscle, and with my body type, I can stay fairly lean, and still gain weight. That was what worked for me. But it does take time, and experimentation, and you gotta trust the process, even though I hate that like cliche trust the process. But like you gotta have the patience to figure out what your body needs and not just like cut corners and do some copycat stuff from somebody you follow.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And I like to save this towards the end of the podcast, but we sort of already brought it up. We are both on the very tall end, I think, of society. You especially for a girl and me for a guy. I'm 6'3". We know a certain struggle that most people don't know when it comes to putting on muscle and gaining weight. What was that been like for you when it first started out? Because obviously, I mean, if you were a novice when you start out, you obviously probably didn't know that it takes a lot more effort or energy to put on muscle if you're taller. How did you adjust to that? And how does that even affect you now?
So when I first started, I really was kind of a twig. Like I was at a fairly low body weight for my height. I mean, 5'9" and 135. I was pretty, I don't know, I was kind of what they call like skinny fat.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, yeah, that was me. And I didn't realize, in my mind, I was like, oh, muscle is muscle, it grows at the same rate, which is not true for everyone. But, for tall people, your muscle has to grow up before it can grow out. Versus with short people, there's really not much up that it has to grow, so it just grows out. And that includes strength. So, it has taken me a while to kind of put on the mass that I put on now. But also, as far as strength goes, it will take me longer to reach the strength of so I'm competing 72 kilograms, which is 158 pounds. It will take me longer to reach that strength level of the average 72 kilo girls. It will take me longer because most of them are shorter than me. So.
Yeah. And obviously, even doing the workouts can be a lot harder. Like for me, squatting is going to be a lot harder than for someone who's like 5'5" or 5'6". Has that been hard for you to kind of learn those certain different techniques that you might have to use? Because when you're a little bit longer and lankier, it's going to be hard to sort of get to that squat position, or even with deadlifts, getting that back all the way up. If it's just so much of your legs, has that been difficult for you as well?
Yeah, I've definitely struggled with deadlift specifically has just been my enemy lift. I hate it so much since I started because a lot of people tell me that I should sumo because I'm taller. My hips don't allow it because CrossFit fucked me. But so yeah, for deadlifts, it's been a struggle, and I've decided to do conventional, and I will be at just a gravitational disadvantage because I have to move the weight a further distance. And then even with bench, I have a pretty good arch when it comes to bench, but my arms are still really long. So it's even though I might have a crazy good arch, I still have a longer distance to move that weight up and down. Same thing with squats. Mm-hmm. The distance is just longer.
And like you said, when you started out, you kind of did the bodybuilding type thing. You never competed, but you kind of did the bodybuilding like training. How was that different? And do you think that benefited you when you transitioned to powerlifting, already sort of having that base in the bodybuilding style workouts?
Yeah, I think it really helped me because I already had the intensity that I had learned from the bodybuilding workouts. So whenever I was going to do a bodybuilding workout, because most bodybuilders, your workouts are till failure. So it's okay, I'm going to go balls to the wall and do lateral raises until my shoulders fall off, or whatever the case may be. And so I really did have that intensity for my workouts. And I think that that's definitely helped me in the long run. So now whenever I'm doing powerlifting, even though for powerlifters, we don't lift at 100% every single time that we lift, but I'm able to take that intensity and focus that I learned from bodybuilding and put that into each and every set of my powerlifting workouts.
What was your nutrition like before you started lifting?
Garbage. So, like I said, when I first got to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was living on campus and eating at the dining halls, which basically means a trash can. So I would eat everything, and they made really good homemade chocolate chip cookies, and I would take 15 and then back to my dorm. So I didn't have the best diet, and then when I started getting into working out, I thought that a good diet meant low carb, aka low calorie, which is just torture, basically. And the way that I eat now has changed.
I'm embarrassed as the first time I'm going to admit what my diet was like, even when I was working out in college, because I was lucky where I had such a perfect class schedule where I could work out like 2 hours a day. Because let's face it, when it gets really, really cold up in Minnesota during the winter, there's nothing to do besides really work out or just stay inside and chill and Netflix or whatever. But when I was in college, I would, run for 45 minutes and I'd work out for an hour and 15 minutes afterwards 5 times a week. But then my diet would be I would get a half gallon of chocolate milk. I'd drink that in one night. Then I'd go to the cafeteria and probably get like 3 hamburgers or like maybe a slice of pizza on top of that. So literally just a carb machine just going through. And I still look decent, but I always tell myself, I was like, imagine if I actually like ate healthy with all those workouts. Imagine what I would have looked like. But yeah, and then it really took me a while to really adjust to that nutrition. So that's really just a huge adjustment. And how did your body first adjust when you started lifting? Did you really adjust did it change really, really quickly, or did it take more of a time commitment?
Um, so I don't know if you've heard the term before, like movie
Yep.
games. I think in some aspects I did experience that. I think I leaned out pretty quickly because like I was eating low carb and doing lots of cardio and lifting at the same time. So like my muscles were more easy for people to see. But at the same time, like I didn't start seeing serious mass, like noticeable, almost like a year in, where like I started noticing like, okay, I'm gaining a lot of muscle, or like I'm getting bigger. And that's what like I tell people all the time is like you cannot just expect results over a 2 month time span. You have to give it time, and you have to be committed and patient with it. Otherwise, like, because I know people that will give up. They'll be like, "Oh, I tried it for a month and I didn't see anything. It's not worth it." Blah blah blah. And right when they're on like the cusp of quitting is when they're so close to their breakthrough. You just have to keep doing it, and you have to stay committed. It's not magic. People will tell me like, "I want to look like you," and I'm like, "I'm literally a normal person. Like, I am not a magician. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not special. Okay, I am a full time student. I work. I do my thing. I've just stuck with it to the point where now like the results show. But anybody can do that.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's all just about positive mindset too. I mean, it's such a mental game, and especially some of the bodybuilders I have on here, they have a huge mental game when it comes to just keeping that contest, especially during their prep, and even with powerlifting too. I mean, it's all mental. I mean, it's probably like 10% your body, 90% mental, because your body can do things. It's all about what your mind tells your body to do, or kind of gives yourself motivation to do, unless obviously you get hurt or something like that. But also, when it comes to the beginner gains, I always love to ask, how did you sort of adjust when your beginner gains ended? Because like I'll explain to everyone on here who doesn't really understand you. Like when she was talking about your beginner gains or newbie gains, your body isn't used to all that working out, so it adjusts really, really quickly because it's trying to sort of catch up. It doesn't know what's going on, but eventually it will catch up and sort of recognize what's going on. So then you will slow down. You will still make progress, but it won't be nearly at the rate of progress that you were making when you started. And when that happened to you, was that a struggle for you to sort of adjust to the fact that, hey, I am going to, take a little bit longer to put on as much as I did when I was starting?
So I think in the moment I didn't actually realize it because so I had been dieting down, and then I stopped dieting, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do high carb. And so I think around the time where I stopped dieting and went to high carb, that was the end of my newbie gain process. But also, I think my newbie gains had been stunted from the fact that I was not nourishing my body properly. And so whenever I started filling my body with carbs, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And I put on a lot more size. And I definitely have noticed now that, like, yeah, the progress has slowed, especially since, like, over this past year, I bulked up and now I cut back down. I was 173 and now I'm about 162 right now, and I'll be 158 by the time my meet comes around. So I think like my progress has definitely slowed. It doesn't really affect me at this point because now I'm really not as focused on aesthetics anymore. I'm more focused on strength and power. Obviously, aesthetics still play a role. Like, no human is going to be like, I don't give a shit about how I look. Like, yes, you do. Everybody cares about how they look. But I think at this point in time, like, another thing I've noticed is that I think right now is the best I've ever looked aesthetically since I started powerlifting, because the amount of stress that's being put on my muscles, like, I think is stimulating a lot of growth, which is great. So I don't know. I think it's a roller coaster ride, and I didn't really realize it until recently.
Now you kind of said that you wanted to, get big and put on a lot of muscle. That was your big transition to powerlifting. But was there any other reason that you decided to sort of switch workouts? Because it is such a different training mindset and also when it comes to nutrition. Was there any other reason other than just wanting to get, really big that you really switched that lifestyle?
Um, I think in my head, like especially as a female, I had never known what it was like to be strong. Ever. Like I was always the girl that struggled with push-ups, struggled with pull-ups. I had never known what that was like, and so I realized, over the course of time, like I just wanna, I just wanna get big, and I just wanna see, and some of that also came from like, and I'm not trying to drag my relationship through the dirt or whatever, but the relationship I had been in was a little toxic, and that person specifically did not want me to be big. And so I think afterwards, it was not a revenge body deal, but I was like, okay, so and so didn't want me to do this. I wonder what would happen if I actually did, and like, would I like it? Would I enjoy it? Because I chose not to, but now maybe like I can, and maybe it would be cool. I don't know. And in my mind, I was like, I already know how to diet down and lose weight, so if I bulk up and I don't like it, I can just lose it. Just cut back down again. So
One of the big myths that we obviously always love to bust is that it's gotten a little bit better, especially with Instagram over the last 5 years, but there still are a lot of women that have that fear where if they touch one weight, they're going to Hulk out, become Dwayne The Rock Johnson, just put on 50 pounds magically overnight. I don't know why they believe it, but did you have that fear when you were starting out? And even if you didn't, when people come up to you and sometimes say that they might have that fear, what is your main response?
So I don't think I had that problem because as I grew into like the person that I wanted to be, I realized that I wasn't going to make people happy with my choices. So I knew that like society, quote unquote, wants girls to be skinny and small and fit whatever box they make them to fit in. And I already knew I wasn't going to fit in that, so fuck it, I'm gonna do what I like. I'm gonna make myself happy. And I think that that's what I tell girls that come up to me. They're like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna gain all this weight if I start lifting." And first of all, I pulled science card because I'm like, listen, you don't have enough testosterone to put on mass that quickly, and even if you magically did have that much testosterone, it's going to take like at least a year, if not years, plural, for you to put on that much mass. Even guys I know that start lifting, they don't put on that much mass in 6 months, unless they're doing a little something, something on the side.
Yep,
okay?
yep.
So that's what I tell girls. I'm like, listen, it's going to take a lot more for you to reach, like, even if you see these girls on Instagram that are huge, I'm like, okay, they've probably been lifting for 10 or 15 years. Or they've been doing a little something, something on the side that's been helping their progress.
Yes.
So you can't, it's frustrating to me. But anyway, so I tell them, science says that that's not going to happen. But also, you need to do what makes yourself happy. And if you think that lifting weights is going to make you happy, then do it and be happy. And screw what anybody else says. Like, you're here to live this life for yourself. You're not here to make random people on the internet or society or anybody else happy. You're not here for their.
We're going to bust this myth in about 5 seconds. Can you give us a flex real quick? And I was going to say, does she look like Dwayne The Rock Johnson? Does she look like the Hulk? Yeah, look at that. And she's been working out for how long? Come on, people. I know, it's ridiculous. Every time, I always tell my guests to do that, and every single time it's like, do they look like Dwayne The Rock? Now, granted, some of the guys that we have on here do look like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, so I don't have them flexed then at that point, because I'm just like, okay, I don't want to say that because then they actually do, but it's like women especially don't understand just all the hard work and dedication that it has to take in order to do that. And I always tell my favorite story when it comes to that. When I started working out and getting really big and strong in college, I had a really good friend of mine, and she would always say when I'd go to the gym, she'd be like, "Oh, I really want to go with you, but I don't want to, bulk up. I don't want to get so huge." And I put up with it for a couple of weeks, but then finally one night I just snapped and said, "Look, the amount of weight that your purse weighs when we go out to like clubs or when we go get something to eat weighs a lot more than some of the dumbbells in the gym. And you aren't putting on any muscle from carrying that thing around 24/7. And she's finally like, yeah, I guess so. So then I finally convinced her to go in. And it's one of those things where once you get in there and touch that first weight and realize like, hey, it's not bad at all. It's actually really helpful for me. It's just like anything else. Like if you're afraid of heights or whatever, and if you get up to a really big height and then realize, hey, it's not so bad. It's just one of those things where once you try it out, it can really, really help with your self-esteem. And then another big myth is that women, especially, some guys even have that too. This too, where they think that there's just going to be these big 400-pound just made of pure like American beef guys, just 400 big roided up dudes that are going to be in there, and they're just going to be super intimidating, and they're going to like make it uncomfortable for you. And then I always say this, me especially, having talked to so many health and fitness people on this show, they are some of the nicest people you will ever meet on the planet, and they are more than willing to usually answer your questions as long as you come up to them respectfully. Like I always say, never walk up to these people when they're mid-set or whatever and then ask them questions. I've seen that happen at the gym, and even before it happens, I want to just run up to the person and be like, don't do it, you're not going to like what happens. But just, yeah, they're usually some of the nicest people, and 99% of the time, people are way more focused on themselves than they will ever be on you when they're working out, because it's all about, bettering yourself. So that's just another huge thing that I love to bust. But when it also comes to women in powerlifting, which is, I think they are underrepresented, because whenever everyone thinks about powerlifting, they tend to think about guys. What are some ways that you think women in general could do in order to sort of make themselves more known in the weightlifting world?
I honestly think like just women supporting each other is like, and I don't mean to be all, wave my feminist flag or whatever, but I really do think like, one of the reasons why I got into powerlifting was because of my friend who powerlifted, and she believed in me enough where I was like, yeah, okay, maybe I can do this. Like, I'm going to look into it. I'm going to get a coach, blah, blah, blah. But I think it really comes down to just like, if you are a female in the weightlifting or powerlifting world, like, reach back and help other girls, because people did that for me, and now I want to do that for girls who have not decided to take the leap yet, or who are afraid, or who are nervous, or who don't think that there's going to be support on this side, when really, like, there is a huge community of women in powerlifting and weightlifting, and, like, we're here to welcome you with open arms. And that's why, like, so at the gym I work out at, it's a very small, like, powerlifting box gym. If there's anybody new, but specifically girls that come in there, that, I always introduce myself, like, hey, what's up? I'm Sam. Let's be best friends. Like, let's be strong together, because I don't ever want girls to feel alone or feel intimidated by me, because that happens. Like, girls will be like, there's this little girl, I mean, she's tiny. She's like probably 4'10". She's a powerlifter at our gym. She's new into it, and I didn't know she was using this bench, so I went to like put weight on it, and she told one of the dudes, she was like, oh, I'm just using that, but like, I don't want to tell her that she's gonna beat me up. Anyway, the dude comes up to me and he's like, hey, like, she was still using that, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, like, I had no idea, I did not mean to, blah, blah. I was like, I would never beat you up, please don't think of me like that, like, I'm a teddy bear, okay? And so, like, I understand the intimidation factors there, especially for bigger people like myself, and I have to be aware of that too, to make sure that I don't ever give people reason to think that, like, I am an intimidating person. So,
do you ever sometimes feel that you have to be extra nice in order to sort of dispel that myth that people have about people that are bigger, that they might be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more mean? Do you ever sometimes think that you have to be nicer than you normally would if you weren't such a big powerlifter?
I think I just need to be aware, because I'm a very aggressive person. And when I say aggressive, I don't mean like confrontational. Well, I am. Okay, I don't know. I'm aggressive. Okay, especially when I'm in the zone lifting, like I am there to put in work. And so I definitely have to actively flip that switch on and off. So it's like, used to, I could probably just put my headphones on and just be like in the zone. But if I'm at a gym and there's, our gym is very social, we talk a lot, I gotta flip that switch back to like friendly Samantha that's not gonna eat anybody, and be social in that way. And then when it's time for my set, headphones on, flip the switch, aggressive, let's get this work done, So it's something that I have to actively be aware of. I don't say that like I'm any more nice. I think I'm just a pretty friendly individual. But I definitely have to make sure that I'm not like resting bitch face or whatever, whenever I'm like in the zone. So.
I found that out too, being a little bit taller than myself. Sometimes some guys would come up to me and be like, "Oh, hey, are you done using that?" And I'd just be like, "Oh, no, the thing is, I got the Minnesota nice too, where it's just I'm, super super nice." But living in a state like Texas, I mean, Minnesota's renowned for being like one of the two healthiest states. We always are competing with those bastards from Maine for healthiest state in the country. It's always switching. Basically, every year it'll switch between 1 and 2. But what would you say the overall powerlifting scene is like in Houston?
As far as like health goes, or just like,
well, like health, and then like how's like the whole scene? Is powerlifting like really popular down in Houston?
I don't think it's as popular as bodybuilding. bodybuilding is. I think like even so, Raw Nationals is happening right now for USAPL, and there's a lot of big name people that are from Houston that are going to Raw Nationals. But honestly, like even the big name people are so chill and nice and like cool to hang out with. So I definitely think that like powerlifting is underrepresented when it comes to a sport like bodybuilding, because honestly, most girls that go to the gym will end up competing in bodybuilding before they ever think about powerlifting. Because for some reason, and I think it's just in the health and fitness industry in general, powerlifters are underrepresented. Most influencers you see are, I Am Beauty Pro or Mr. Olympia, all the big names. You don't have a lot of big names that are, strictly powerlifters. You do have some, okay, but like Meg Squats, Russell Orkey, there's some other ones, but like, it is a little bit underrepresented, and especially here, but I think that also makes us closer.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, like if you were to ask me to name powerlifters, yeah, I would name like a Meg Squats, or I'd name like 2 or 3 other guys. But if you were to ask me to name bodybuilders, I mean, I could list off almost like 100, just because I do think, especially with Instagram too, because everyone wants to look at, the bikini girls, or they want to look at, some of the other guys, where powerlifting, it's one of those things where it is super appealing for a lot of people, but it's just seeing, sometimes like when you're wearing like those one pieces that they make both the girls and the guys wear, when people see that on Instagram, they're like, yeah, I'd rather see girls on the beach in a bikini, like talking about stuff. So it's just one of those things, but it's really, really awesome to have powerlifters on the show. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's definitely such a cool sport, because you don't really have to do all of the dieting that bodybuilders have to do. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the weightlifting plus the not so strict diet as bodybuilders, where you can go crazy just off of that stuff. And believe me, we've heard plenty of stories like that. But I've also noticed that you're in Houston, but you don't have a Southern accent. We've had so many guests from the South on the show, and so I'd say probably about half have been from the South, half have been from northern states. Out of all the Southern people, I've had 3 people that have had a distinctive Southern accent out of the 50. So are you originally not from the Texas area?
So I was originally born in Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
And I lived there till I was 6. But like when I moved here when I was 6, I literally was hell bent on not getting a Southern accent. My grandparents would tease me. They'd be like, "You're gonna move there and say y'all and have a Southern drawl and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Bet, I'm not gonna do it." I'm definitely one of those personalities where if somebody tells me I'm gonna do something, I'll be like, "Fuck you." So that's what happened, and I definitely grown into saying like I'll say y'all a little bit, but I definitely don't have like the southern accent.
Yeah. I'm glad, because we had one guy who was from Louisiana where he had that backwater Southern accent, where and he was in a band, which I was lucky because he was one of 4 people. So I was almost going to tell the people, where I was like, this guy can't talk the rest of the podcast because no one can understand him. I'm going to have to like put subtitles underneath him. I'm going to have to try to figure out what he's saying, because it was just like, it was like, if you've seen the movie The Water Boy.
It's like the backwoods, like,
yeah,
drawl, but also just like the words that,
yeah.
I've heard people like that before, and I'm just like,
yeah, like if you've seen the movie The Water Boy, where that one coach who talks like that, where you can't understand that's basically what that guy was like, where I was like, I do a podcast with you just for laughs. Like I do like a full like 2 hour, I do like a 10-hour podcast with this guy just so that I could just hear him talk constantly. But yeah, it was very, very rough. But now we kind of get to more of the coaching aspect of your life. At what point in your journey did you decide that you wanted to become a coach and help out others?
Okay, so when I started getting into fitness and I started working out, I had friends coming to me being like, "Hey, help me lose weight," or just random people, And it's funny because once you start getting into fitness, like all those people who didn't really want to associate with you will
Yes.
come coming back and be like, "Hey, want to train me? Want to help me lose weight?" Anyway, whatever, snakes. But so people started asking for help, and I'm an engineering major. I'm really interested in science and STEM, and I was like, if I'm going to be helping people, I need to make sure that I know my shit. Like, I don't want to be giving people false information, especially since I was like at the beginning of my journey. So I like Googled best personal training certifications, and I came across NASM, which is the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and they're one of the best as far as like marketable certifications that you can get. So I did like the self study, took my exam or whatever, and then I applied at the recreation center at my university and ended up getting hired there. So I've been training people for about a year and a half now, and I really enjoy it. Like, I think what I love about it so much is that I was able to take something that had such a huge impact on me and share that with other people. And I love it. And so I get, I tell people I get my nerd side from like the engineering career, but I get like the actual helping people and bringing substance into people's lives and, transforming lives through being a coach and a personal trainer. So
I was just honestly so surprised when you told me that you were an engineering major, just because most of the engineering people that I know aren't usually the most social people on the planet. They tend to be more of the book people where, you get them in a conversation, you're kind of like, okay, are you even human? Like, trust me, two of my best friends are engineers, and I'm like, I love you guys to death, but honestly, like, when we go out, I do not know you. Like, you are not friends with me when we go out together. Like, I'll pick you up in the car, but like, yeah, they're not gonna see us walk out of the same car. So yeah, when you said that you're a mechanical, I was like, wow, that's interesting, because that's like definitely. So I mean, you're just breaking stereotypes left and right with the powerlifting and being a mechanical engineer, personal trainer. You're just the ultimate in that. I mean, that's awesome. But what would you say is probably the number one excuse that you usually receive from people who don't want to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle? What's their biggest excuse?
I'd say that there's, and I think the other one is that it hurts. And I'll address the first one. So I don't have time. Do I think that there are people out there who don't have time? Yes, I believe that those people exist. Okay, I believe that there are schedules and circumstances where you don't have time. Am I trying to compare your schedule to mine? No. However, I will say I am a full-time student. I work 20 plus hours per week. I have family, I have friends, I deal with mental illness. I have all this stuff and I'm still able to train. So I'm not going to look at people and be like, what's your excuse? But I kind of am, because I know people that work 60 hours a week, they're still getting to the gym. I know people that work 80 hours per week, they're still getting to the gym. I know this guy who I worked with, he's really into CrossFit and weightlifting, which is great, good for him. He worked probably 60 hours a week, had two daughters, both in different sports that he would drop them off for, wakes up at 3:30 every morning so that he can get his weightlifting workouts in. He's committed, and it all comes down to your level of commitment. How bad do you want it? And my favorite like motivational talk, and I think you can look it up, like how bad do you want to breathe? Basically, TLDR, it's about this guru that takes this guy out to the ocean who wants to be successful, and he holds the guy underwater, and he holds him and holds him and holds him, and as soon as he lets him up, he's like, however bad you want to breathe, like however bad you want to be successful, when you want to be successful as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you'll be successful. But until then, you just kind of want it, And so that's what I tell people. And like, it's not for everyone, right? And I don't think that you have to have this obsessive lifestyle. That's what I work with my clients on, is like lifestyle fitness. A lot of my clients only work out 4 days a week. They're seeing great progress. It's great, They live their lives. They go out on the weekends. They see their families. They see their friends, whatever. But if you don't want it, it's never going to happen. If you're not willing to make sacrifices for it, it's never going to happen. And then coming back to the whole it hurts one, I don't know why I get this, and I literally have a very low tolerance for the whole it hurts, because, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Everyone would do it. And I don't mean to be like spitting out the cliche terms, but really, And that's why I love the gym, because if I can push through that pain and that struggle of that workout, I know in my head that I can push through the pain and the struggle of other things that happen in my life. And I use that metaphor throughout, literally everything. If I can make it through the pain of a workout, I can make it through the pain of, a fight or a bad grade or whatever. So, yeah, it hurts, but life is also painful. So either you can get stronger or you can stay weaker and complain about it. So
Yeah, coming from someone that played football, I mean, if someone were to say if that hurts to me, I've never heard that excuse, because if someone said that excuse to me, I would probably just have them stick their foot out and then I'd drop a weight on it and say, "Oh, does that hurt? Does that really hurt you?" But yeah, it's just, yeah, that's one of those things. But time, I get that. That's probably, I mean, 95% of our guests say that's the number one excuse that they get. And I always, kind of like what you were saying. I've had nurses on here that work 12-hour shifts, day after day, and they still find time to work out. It's all about just your commitment and just like I always say, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, besides guys like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, because I'm pretty sure he has like 26 or 27, because how that guy's able to do all of his stuff, it's a miracle. So he might be on something else that I have no idea, but yeah. and he's still a movie star. He's still able to do all these interviews. Like, I don't get it personally, but so yeah. Other than Dwayne the Rock Johnson, we all operate on the same 24 hours. But it's just all about how you use them, and it's all about motivation. I always love to give the story of, probably one of the toughest individuals I've ever met in my entire life. There's a guy. I usually work out at home because I got a sick setup at my house, which is nice. But I also go to another gym a few miles by, and there's a guy who used to be a Navy SEAL for 15 years. I never did give any excuses around this guy. He'd come in sometimes and he'd be like, yeah, I haven't slept in 56 hours, but I got to get my workout in. That's just Navy SEAL training. They get sleep deprived and they're still able to do their stuff. And I'm just like, dude, how are you still alive? Like, how are you like what? Go to bed for God's sake. And then he's like, oh no, I just wasn't tired or whatever. And it's just one of those things where if you see someone like that, you're all of your excuses just when you're coming up and you're just like, oh, I don't feel like working out. And then you see a guy like that and you're like, I'm going to go to the gym. Yeah. So it's just all about how you do your priorities and just making it fun too. Because people nowadays, they just want everything nice and quick. They want it nice and fast, and they don't realize that it's going to take a lot of time and effort. So make it interesting. I mean, if everyone just does the same boring thing, it kind of makes it less interesting. But now we kind of move on to the more favorite part of the podcast for all of our audience, and especially for me, where we'll do a little questionnaire here with Sam here. See what her answers are going to be like stacked up to everyone else. Give her about a dozen or so questions. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
My go-to workout song is Bonfire by Childish Gambino.
Ooh.
I don't know if you've ever heard it before, but it's literally like my favorite hype song. I literally play it like at the beginning of my sets. But
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give that. I have not heard that, but I'm definitely gonna give that a listen. Actually, after we're done right here, I actually love hearing all the recommendations. Me personally, I thought you would be a little bit more like me because I'm more of an old school, like where I gotta have my Metallica or like Iron Maiden or Rage Against the Machine when I'm lifting. But here's the problem: I gotta wait for the beat to drop. So sometimes when I'm not working out at home, I'm working out in the gym. I'll be getting ready to do like lat pull downs or something like that, and I gotta wait for the beat to drop. So sometimes people will see me standing there for like 20 seconds. They're like, "What the hell is this guy doing? Like, what is he? What is he?" And I'm just like, sometimes I even gotta be like waiting for the beat to drop, and they're like, "Oh, okay, cool." So then you gotta wait for the beat to drop to come down just so you get the more motivation and intention. But I'm also super cheesy. Like if you give me the Rocky IV soundtrack, I listen to that stuff too, just because it's so 80s cheesy, just motivational. Where I mean, even I'm gonna work out later today, and that's probably one of the. I usually listen to at least one song from that movie, just because it is the cheesiest, but it's also really, really just it adds a smile to my face, which is you can't take yourself so seriously when you're at the gym all the times too. You gotta have a laugh. You gotta get a little bit inspired. But if out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
celebrity, can it be like an instant famous
Yeah,
celebrity?
absolutely.
I think like so there's a powerlifter. Her name is Maddie Forberg. I
Oh,
don't know if you've heard of her
mm-hmm.
before. I'd probably work out with her because like dude, she blows my mind because she's like 21 years old, full time nursing student, does like all this. She's so busy and she literally just won first in like her weight class in juniors at Raw Nationals. And I was just like, I love
For me, if we're talking about like Instagram or just like bodybuilders, I mean, for celebrity, I don't know who I'd work out with, but I'd probably say Arnold for celebrity. But if we're talking about like bodybuilders, powerlifters now, I had him on about 4 days ago, Ronnie Coleman, and that's just I would just just talking to him, I was just like, dude, like what, like he honestly, the computer screen he almost couldn't fit into it, and I'm just like, dude, Ronnie, come on, dude. I was like, do they build special doorways for you? And he started laughing. He's like, yeah, actually, in my house, the doorways are like 6 inches wider, like on the side, like I had them installed. I was like, that guy is just so big that it defies imagine. And then you'll see videos of him like squatting like 1,200 pounds or whatever, like on Instagram. It's like if I could live with him just to watch, like I wouldn't do anything. I'd just be like, dude, I'm just gonna watch you work out, just so I can just be like, oh my god, that's incredible. And his whenever he goes like lightweight, all that stuff is some of the funniest things ever. Like we had people in we had people in high school that would yell that stuff out, and I was like, where'd that come from? They're like, oh, there's this guy Ronnie Coleman, and they like showed me his YouTube videos, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's hilarious. So then I still hear that all the time. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
train any celebrity. Ooh, I don't know. That's a really good question. So there's a girl. Her name's Nikita Dragon. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's like a makeup beauty influencer.
I think I've heard of her. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I would want to train her because like she's really funny and really sassy, and I think that like our personalities would get along really well, and that like she could get in shape and stuff like that. That I could help her out.
Yeah, for me, I'll do a guys and a girls version. For guys, it's got to be Kevin Hart, just because He'd be so fun. But here's the problem. I always say we would not be able to get a workout in because he would be so funny that like we wouldn't be able to concentrate and get a workout in. I'll say we would get the best ab workout of all time just from all the laughs. And my only comeback to him that I would be able to say is like, Kevin, I'm tall, you're short. That's the only comeback I could ever use to him. But he would just kill me. It would be hilarious. But then for girls, I mean, I gotta go, like a Julianne Hough or a Jennifer Aniston. I mean, I wouldn't really, I'd train her, but it would test my will as a personal trainer to just be like, oh my God, you're so beautiful or whatever. But yeah, it would test my willpower. But I think I'd be able to get it done.
I believe in you.
Yeah, I believe myself. I mean, my brain, I might have to, just like be able to just close your eyes for about half the time. But for our fourth question, yeah, absolutely. For our fourth question, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Yogurt, like Greek yogurt, Chobani. I eat that. I eat at least one a day, if not more. But it's a great source of carbs and protein, and it's so quick and really fast digesting. So like, I'll pop that before I go to the gym.
You might think I'm a freak for saying this, but I've only had yogurt once in my entire life. Once.
So I didn't used to like it. Like I didn't like it growing up as a kid, and then I found Greek yogurt, like Chobani specifically, is like the only brand that I'll eat, and it actually tastes like real fruit. And like, I don't know if you ever had like frozen yogurt, but it kind of tastes like ice cream. Like it's really not that bad. It's pretty good.
Well, I was raised. I mean, if you probably remember those commercials with the yogurt, the grab and go yogurt, like all that stuff that they'd always put. Yeah, that's the one that I tried, and I was like, yeah, this tastes like shit. So I was like, yeah,
it does.
yeah,
it's fake. It's like all
yeah. So maybe I'll try an actual yogurt now because I've had people come on and say yogurt, but our weirdest answer by far has been someone said mustard, and I was like, okay, you got to elaborate a little bit more on that. And they're like, bodybuilders, yep, because they say there's no fat or whatever, and it's a lot of protein. And I was like, okay, I never knew that because I'm a ketchup guy straight down. But for me, I mean, I probably just gotta have like milk or something like that in there. I mean, we have chicken usually, but I'd say milk, and then I use like the Nesquik just to make it chocolate milk. I don't like the straight chocolate milk, but yeah, that's go to absolutely for me. But what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate.
The third guest on the show that has the same as me, and I mean, like I always say, get me a chocolate chip cookie dough blizzard from Dairy Queen. I'm set for the night.
They're so good.
I limit myself to once a month during the winter, and then once every 2 weeks during the summer because it's going to be hot outside. Where I mean, you give me one of those. I always tell myself that I always have to work out before I have one because if I have one of those, it fills me up so much that I don't want to work out. Where I'm just like, okay, my stomach's full. I'm not going to be able to work out. So I learned that the hard way. But yeah, get me a large chocolate chip cookie dough blizzard. Extra damn cookie doughs. Put that shit in there. 100%. That is the way. I mean, for any of the ladies out there on the podcast, that is the way to my heart. So if you send me some chocolate chip cookie doughs, send me your address or whatever, and then I'll send you a little thank you. So thank you very much. But moving on. So what is one item that you would die to have if it went up for auction?
If it went up for auction? So that means I have to have like the money to buy it?
Well, in this scenario, you would have the money to buy it, yeah.
Oh, okay. Damn. That's a hard question.
I got it from that Vogue 73 questions where they asked celebrities. That's where I got most of these answers from. So I'm cheating a little bit, but yeah, that was one that I looked at and I was like, okay, that's going to be a great one.
That's good. Honestly, my dream car is a Lamborghini, so like I probably like a matte black Lamborghini.
Yeah. We had one guest who said that she wanted to wear like an all diamond bikini for the next competition that she had at. And I was like, okay, first of all, and then she's like, because the judges wouldn't be able to take their eyes off me and I'd win. And then I was like, first of all, you're going to have an Indiana Jones scenario where it's going to like melt people's faces off because of the reflection of the light, where everyone's just going to be blinded by it. And then we had another lady that said Channing Tatum, and I was like, okay, that's a different type of issue that I'm not going to discuss right now. Yeah, that's human trafficking, people. I was like, that's ended a long time ago, everyone. We're not going to bring that back. So yeah, that was one of those answers where I was like, I appreciate the answer, but come on now. But yeah, so for me personally, I mean, I'm a history major, huge military history buff. Anything like that is so probably I'd go Nick Cage, Declaration of Independence, something like that. I don't know. Yeah. So what is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
I'm trying to think because I'm really open on my Instagram.
Do you mention it a lot that you're an engineer on your Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
People know that. Probably like my sense of humor. Like I'm just so dumb. Like I'm literally just like goofy, and especially in the gym, I'm always just like dancing around or like being stupid or like making dumb dad jokes or dick jokes.
I've seen some of her live videos that she does on Instagram, and I can confirm. Yeah.
So like, I do some dumb shit, and I think like I I think I try to portray it on my Instagram, and sometimes like it just doesn't go through. But yeah, like you see me, I'm like not a serious person at all.
Absolutely, and that's kind of like same with me too. I mean, I don't really have an Instagram following, but yeah, if any of that happened, yeah, I'm just a goofball at heart. I mean, you got it. That's what you got to be. I think a lot. You just got to not take everything so seriously. But what is one thing that you could change about the sport of powerlifting if you had the all-seeing power to do so?
Ooh, okay. This is a random thing, but since I compete USAPL, they allow guys to deadlift without shirts on, like under their singlets during competition, but they don't allow girls to do that. And I hate it so much because I don't want to deadlift with a t-shirt on, and neither do the dudes, so let us deadlift without our t-shirts on.
Oh, so you're talking about you'd still have clothing on and stuff like that underneath,
Oh,
or
yeah, like you have
okay? Because I was gonna say I was gonna be like, okay, I support that notion 100%, everyone, but yeah.
No, it's like you have your so it would be like what I'm wearing right now. Like you have your singlet on, but so they force girls to wear like t-shirts.
Oh, yep.
Underneath for deadlifts, but guys can deadlift just like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, oh, really? I was like, they let guys go shirtless or what? I thought you meant like guys were just going like full, like up top. Just, I was like, first of all, that's definitely something that's I had no idea about. But yeah, for me, if I mean, I'm not super into the powerlifting, but I have learned a lot about it. For me, I would just change, sometimes just how people are. I don't know. It seems how some ways some people find like shortcuts on how to sort of cheat it. Like we've said that people sometimes wear like heels kind of like underneath their shoes, or they wear certain socks or something, or there's different techniques that people use. I was like, there should just be one mandated, or a lot of people have said that there's so many different federations. Just make one big federation that controls everything.
Yeah, I think like it comes down to preference. So, like you have to choose like what you prefer. The USAPL is stricter, like they're very strict with drug testing. They're strict with the brands that they allow. So that's why I like competing USAPL because like it's more like you said, kind of like everybody has to compete under the same rules. USPA, which is like US Powerlifting of America or something. Anyway, I don't even know what it stands for. They're a little bit more lenient on their stuff. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And I always love to ask this question. I mean, these next two questions are by far my personal favorite. One of the things that I discovered when I started working out, getting bigger and stronger, probably the biggest negative thing for me is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. You're going to get asked to do a lot of things for people like, Ryan, I need this to help get lifted up. Can you help me? My entire summer is just scheduled weekends. Hey, we're moving. Can you help us lift our couch or our chairs or whatever? Have you experienced anything similar to that? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I don't think like I necessarily have people that are like, hey, can you bring stuff for me? But I think some people will be like, oh, she's strong, she can do it.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're the go-to, where it's like, oh, I need you to go up to the attic and get this for me, or like I need you to carry this for me, or I need you to help me with this. And it's like I work out like for a reason, but the reason was not this.
I know every time I have groceries brought home or anything like that, it's always I gotta get out the car and unload everything, and it's the price that we pay, I guess. But I always say to myself, I always deep down consider it a bit of a compliment too, because it means that people at least recognize what you've been doing and they kind of realize a little bit of it. So it is sort of a compliment. And then by far my most popular question that I ask, and the question that everyone loves, is I always tell everyone this is a multi-million-dollar idea. So if you have any idea of how to make this, make it. You will become a multi-millionaire. When it comes to women with muscles or women powerlifters or women who are bigger, your clothing options are very limited. They're not going to make, they're not making a lot of stuff for people with big shoulders. I mean, like I always say, if you have big shoulders and you're a woman, you're basically shit out of luck when it comes to dresses. One of the big things we get are like jeans. You can't really wear those, especially with everything. I can see from your reaction that that's obviously true. But what are some ways that you sort of compensate for that? Do you have any tips or tricks, or do you just kind of, just basically just wear gym wear all the time?
So on one hand, I do wear a lot of gym wear. I mean, like I'm basically wearing yoga pants right now and a tank top. But for jeans, I've gotten them from like Forever 21. Like there's certain brands that I've heard, like Top Shop, stuff like that are good to get your jeans from for girls. For business clothes, you are fucked. Like so fucked. Because for me, like I had to do an end of term presentation for like my internship this past and I've had to do it before, and I literally can't find business pants that fit. So it's like I literally just buy these baggy ass fucking business pants and I strap a belt on. I'm like, let's go, because this is this is as good as it's gonna get. So low key considering like, maybe I'll start a company one day for like business clothes like for bigger women, I don't know.
Yeah.
But as far as like shoulders go, I like outgrew all my girl clothes. Whenever I started getting big, I literally I outgrew all my girl clothes. So I always try to get stuff that's like stretchy in material. I shop a lot at like Marshalls, TJ Maxx, like those kind of stores, because you can find kind of like more unique finds that maybe they're more stretchy. Like I found jeans there that fit before, versus like if you just go to like normal stores in the mall, it's like they're literally cookie cutter, just copies made for like specific types of bodies. So
yeah,
I don't know if that helps, but yeah, it's a struggle. Like every girl knows that it's a struggle. It just sucks.
Okay, I was gonna say, because I was just gonna say, I'm gonna edit this part out, but I was gonna say you were like getting down like super low, and I was like, oh, we could barely see you, but it's fine. Oh, no worries, no, you came back up, so now it's fine anyway. It was only for like 30 seconds, so it won't be. I won't have to edit out anything, right? So it turned out perfectly. So I'll just go. I'm just marking the time just to know when to edit some of that stuff out. So I'm just in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, absolutely. The struggle. I've heard some horror stories for women. I mean, for men, it's pretty bad too, but it's nowhere near as bad as what women have to go through. I always like to tell the story. I had a friend's wedding one time that I went to, and I had put on about 10, 15 pounds of muscle, and I still had the same clothes. So when I put it on, I bent down to get something. Obviously, the shirt ripped in my tuxedo. The tuxedo didn't rip, but the shirt did. So luckily, it was covered up. But yeah, I had to get a new shirt. So it's definitely something that people who, if you're gaining weight, putting on muscle, you definitely need to think about that deep down. And now we have a few more questions on the questionnaire. First one, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Okay, so I just finished it today. It was called Maniac. It's on Netflix.
I've heard. I was at a party last weekend, and I had friends that were raving about that, but I haven't seen it yet.
So good. Like, and it ends really good too. Like, in the middle, you're like, oh my god, if these motherfuckers die, I'm gonna be so pissed. And then, oh my god, it ends.
Just to verify, is that the show where people like take pills to sort of make themselves like people who might be like mentally ill or whatever take these pills to try to make themselves better? Is it like that? Oh yeah, like a trial. Yep.
Like a scientific trial for like a pharma company.
Oh yep.
And yeah. Anyway, they take the pills. And I don't want to get too much.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to watch it. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I binge watched last weekend. It wasn't that good, but the High Castle season 3, just because I'm interested. I'm a huge like alternate, along with history. I'm a huge like alternate history stuff, and that's kind of like if the Nazis and the Japanese won World War II. It was stupid, just because I mean. It was just a different. It wasn't what I expected it would be, where it was no action really at all. It was just like romantic stories or whatever. And I was like, yeah, you're gonna portray romance in a Nazi occupied America. I was like, yeah, that's good luck with that. So it was definitely just a weird experience. But before that, I'd watched New Girl, which I'd never seen before, and that was actually pretty good. So I recommend New Girl. It was it was really, and I have so many friends that are teachers where I was like, okay, you got to watch New Girl then. So that, and then what is your favorite TV show of all time? They should do an Office Game of Thrones mix-up where like Dwight becomes like one of the Night Kings or something like that. That would be. I was like, if they come up with an idea like that, that would be the greatest. I mean, same here. The Office. I'm a tie. I'm gonna be the most basic person ever. The Office and Friends are probably a tie for me. It depends on what day it is when either I'm watching. But yeah, Game of Thrones. I cannot wait for that last season to come out. I mean, I've heard so many good things about it. It was, and the thing is, for everyone out there, spoilers ahead. So close your ears if you have never heard Game of Thrones. I got started watching it like after the 4th season. So my brother, being the dick that he is, purposely came down. He told me, he's like, when the episode titled The Red Wedding or whatever comes on, I want to come down and watch it with you or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. I like didn't know. So then when the episode came up and people were like talking about the Red Wedding, I was like, oh, Nolan, come down. They're about to like talk about it. And this was like 3 years ago. So he comes down and he's just smiling and staring at me like the entire episode. And then when everything happened, I was like, what? I almost broke the TV screen. I was like, this is bullshit. And I was like, this has got to be a dream, right? And then he's like, nope. So yeah, once that happened, I was hooked for life, because I was like, any show that has the balls to do that, I'm going to be a fan of for life.
Killed off a bunch of people. I was like, what?
Yeah. I was like, how the hell is this show going to go on? That's like killing off the main. But they managed to pull it off. Absolutely. So yeah, Game of Thrones, I am super stoked about that. But now, what is your guilty pleasure movie?
shows recently, so like I haven't watched movies. Um,
While you're thinking, I'll give mine. Mine's the ultimate date night movie. I will never admit it in front of any of my guy friends, but The Princess Bride. That is my go-to date night movie, and if it's one of those movies where if it's on, I'll watch it 100%. No word.
so
I
funny.
can quote that movie so much where even if I were to have a podcast and I'd see it on, I might have to reschedule the podcast. I'm not gonna lie, but it's one of those. It's no, not like that, but like it's just figuratively. But yeah, it's one of those movies where I'll watch it once or twice a year, but it never loses its flair with me.
Yeah, the one I was gonna say is The Proposal. Like, I love that movie. It's with Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock.
Oh yep. Oh yeah, the one where she's gonna get deported to Canada unless she marries an employee. Yeah. I've seen parts of it. Yeah, and yeah. Anything with Ryan Reynolds in it, though. I mean, I don't have any feelings for him, but he is a very attractive man and he's very hilarious. So anything that he's in, I will at least give it a shot. So, unless it's the Green Lantern, then that's a whole different story. Yeah, and as a joke, if you've ever seen, probably my favorite movie to hate is Geely. If you've ever seen that. Don't ever watch it. It's got Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. It's one of the worst movies ever made. Never watch it. Or if you really hate someone, recommend it to them, and then just let you say it is a horrible, 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 horrible movie. And now for our final two questions of the questionnaire. These questions I like to ask every single guest. If one person obviously like walked up to you on the street and was just like, obviously you look amazing. I want to sort of get into shape and adapt a healthy and fit lifestyle. What would be the best piece of advice that you would give them in order for them to be successful?
I think the best piece of advice I would tell them is just like get a gym membership, start going 30 minutes like 3 times a week, and just start. Because it's gonna be a journey, like, and also a tough journey for everyone to figure out what works, what doesn't, blah blah blah. But I think you need to get in the door and you need to start experimenting as soon as you can, and figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like. If you don't like lifting weights, maybe you love group fitness classes. If you don't love group fitness classes, maybe you love, I had this one girl who started with me and we were lifting and she ended up getting into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and now she's competing with that. And so, you'll find your passion, but it takes the first step of you getting in the door, finding it, and figuring out what you love. But that's never going to happen if you don't go.
I always say one of the big things too is make sure to learn ways if you're going in, especially for weight loss, make sure to learn the ways how to keep the weight off once you start losing it. My biggest pet peeve is shows like The Biggest Loser where they get these people on here, they work them out for 14 hours a day. Obviously, you're going to lose weight if you work out for 14 hours a day, no matter what you eat. I mean, they do have these people eating healthier, but they don't teach them how to sustain it. So when the show ends, if they've lost 100 pounds, they'll gain 150 pounds back. So they'll weigh even more they did before the show started because they aren't taught the proper ways. That's why I always tell everyone who asks me that question, I say, make sure that if you're going for weight loss, make sure that you learn ways on how to keep the weight down once you start losing it. Otherwise, it's going to be entirely pointless. Or if you're going in for like strength building, I always say make sure that you keep up the ways on how to keep your strength. Because if you eat the same as you ate before when you're gaining strength, you'll put on a little bit of muscle, but you won't be able to put on any more because your body's not being regenerated or rejuvenated enough as it should. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's my beef with like keto diet, low carb diet, that sort of thing. Because I'm like, okay, it may help you lose weight in a very short amount of time, but the majority of people I know that come down the keto diet have gained the weight back, if not have gained more weight back. People that torture themselves with low carb, that is not sustainable for the rest of your life. You do not want to be 60 years old and eating only avocados, okay? Like, that's not sustainable. And also, you're going to miss out on a lot of life and friendships and family events. Like, that's what I tell people. If you want to be practicing something where I understand being a competitive athlete, okay? 100%. Like, you want to chase your dreams, cool. But in your off season, or that one night that your friends want to go out, you want to be able to go out and enjoy, and not have to feel like, oh, I'm breaking my diet, so now I'm going to do 7 hours of cardio to compensate for this beer I drank last night. No, that's just dumb. So, yeah. Do something that's sustainable.
Absolutely. And then for my final question of the questionnaire, if you could go back and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
That's a good question. Don't base your happiness in other people's opinions of you. Because I definitely did that a lot when I was younger. And like relationships I was in and stuff like that. It's like I tried to change myself to be the person that other people want me to be. and in the process, the only person who wasn't happy was myself. And so I think that's a message that a lot of people need to hear is that you've got to make yourself happy first. And I don't mean like make yourself happy like be a serial killer. I mean like make yourself happy.
Go for it.
Like you need to do what you want to do. There's gonna be people. I'll give you this example. I have a nose ring. Some people don't like it. I don't care. It makes me happy. I'm a big bitch. Some people don't like it. I don't care. It makes me happy. And that me having muscle, me having a nose ring, me dyeing my hair, that does not negatively affect anybody, and it's making me happy. And that's what I tell people. As long as your actions are not negatively affecting anybody, you gotta do what makes yourself happy first before you start trying to please the world, because you're never ever gonna make everybody happy.
That was going to be my answer 100%. And I was going to ask, because I saw some of your YouTube videos, and I'll leave her link down below if you want to go and check out some of her earlier videos. You did change your hair color. What was the reasoning behind that?
I had never dyed it before. I'm a very spontaneous person, so I'll just put that in there. I'm sure my parents really hate it, but because one day I'll wake up and be like, oh, I want another tattoo, or oh, I want another piercing, or oh, I want to change my hair, and my parents are like, but for me, like, I've been blonde for so long. I'm actually blonde, and I had never dyed my hair before, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try something different, so I'm gonna do it. And I started off with light brown, and I was like, and then I did dark brown, and then I've had like a bunch of stuff in between. I've had blue roots and purple roots, and I've gone on the spectrum. I'm probably gonna dye it again.
That's awesome. So now, before we wrap things up here, I like to ask a few powerlifting questions just to sort of understand a little bit more, because I am very fascinated. I think the audience would be fascinated too. One of the huge things I'm fascinated by is those belts that you guys wear. Those belts that are about 10 times as wide as any other belt that you normally wear, 10 times as long. What are those for? What is the main purpose of wearing those?
So typically the belt is either going to be a lever belt, or it'll be like a belt with like a buckle on it. I don't know the names of those ones. I wear lever belts. So we only wear those for typically 2 lifts, which is squat and deadlift. Some people wear them for bench, but the whole purpose of the belt, and I have beef with bodybuilders who wear belts. I'm not trying to start beef on them. Is bracing your core up against the belt. So basically, you're supposed to have the belt around you tight enough to where you can expand your core 360 degrees to protect your spine, and to keep everything super solid for whenever you're squatting and deadlifting. So that's the purpose, is you need something to push up against so that you are protecting your spine. So basically, your entire core should be flexed and engaged. So you take a deep breath in, and then you expand your core 360 degrees up against the belt, do whatever rep you're doing, and then reset. So, and then the reason why I don't like it when bodybuilders wear like the belt cinched around their waist is that they don't know the concept of bracing. You cannot brace 24/7. So honestly, you are doing damage to your core because you're weakening your core, because your core is literally just the belt in and of itself gives you the false illusion of support, so your core is not activated if you're wearing it 24/7. If you're only wearing it for a few seconds and your core is actively pushing up against it, that's fine. But if you're literally just wearing it all the time, there's 2 dudes at my university gym that literally wear it, and their slogan is "Built by the belt." It gives me cancer, because literally you're doing damage to your internal organs, you're doing damage to your core, and it's not helping you if you're not pushing up against it. And also, a belt this big that you're trying to push up against, that's not going to do anything. You need a belt that's thick that your core in its entirety can push up against. Otherwise, literally, like, I've tried those little belts before, my fat just freaking flop around both sides, okay? Like, there is no point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I was always raised old school, where when I benched, it was always, you just sit on the bar, you have your back completely straight, you just go all the way down till it almost touches your chest, and then you just pump it back up. But then I see all these powerlifters, they usually do the thing where they arch their backs in like a contortionist setting. What is the reasoning behind that?
So it actually protects your shoulders. A lot of people don't know this, but basically whenever you arch your spine, and then you activate your lats by pulling your shoulders down and back, which retracts them and actually puts them in a safer position. So a lot of times the bodybuilder style bench is laying flat, and you actually end up caving in your chest when you do that. And that's why you have a lot of people people that get bicep tears because their chest caves in versus for powerlifters, you don't see a lot of powerlifters that get bicep tears because their shoulders are back and down. And whenever you bench, the arch allows you to drive with your legs. Now, according to the rules, like your butt has to stay on the bench, but you keep tension in your quads and in your glutes and your hamstrings, allowing you to drive. And then that drive, you actually use your lats. It's not just your pecs alone that do it. So it's a little bit more of a compound movement than just flat bench.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, something that I really think everyone should maybe start to try and incorporate. I mean, there's definitely tons of videos on there if you want to look it up and see like proper ways to do that technique. I highly, highly recommend it. And again, you guys, Sam, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. Everyone go follow her on her Instagram down below. What are other ways also other than Instagram that people could contact you if they wanted, to get some personal training advice, or if they wanted to, just ask some questions? Are there any other ways other than Instagram?
Instagram is kind of my go-to. I do have a Twitter. It's still at the lifting Llama. And my email is linked to my Instagram, and I respond to all the emails that I get. So if you ever have any questions, like my email is there. You can email me, DM me, I respond to all my DMs. So.
Absolutely. I'll leave those links. And then for your apparel, your unique strength supply, do you have like a code or anything like that people could use for a discount?
I don't currently because we don't have any shirts in stock right now, but they're going to be relaunching soon. And also, they're very affordably priced because, I don't believe in trying to rob people, just trying to profit. So most shirts are like $13, which is what you would normally pay for paying.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, absolutely. So again, I'll leave a link down below for Unique Strength Supply. Everyone definitely go and check that out. They have some really great stuff, and I highly recommend it. And again, you guys, we cannot thank her enough for coming on the show. Thank you so much also. It was great talking about powerlifting. I love having, all sorts of people on the show. We get to hear so many different stories, and just it's super inspiring. And keep doing what you're doing because, like I said, you are a huge inspiration, especially I know to at least a lot of women when it comes to people who are like, people look at you and they say, oh, I can look like that and still be like super feminine, because the biggest complaint that we always hear is that everyone thinks that they're just going to become, like super, super huge. But it's like, no, you can look like that and still be super, super healthy. And it's such a great image that I think for people to have, just to see what you can look like. So honestly, I just got to say, keep doing what you're doing. And again, the guys, the Lifting Llama. Try not to laugh too much when you're typing that into your Instagram page, but definitely go and follow her. You will be inspired, especially when you see some of her live videos where she's like squatting and doing other lifts live. You'll be like, holy crap. And I gotta ask, finally, time for you to embarrass us all. What are your best lifts?
Okay, so I haven't tested my maxes out in a while because I have a meet coming up, so I haven't tested them. But currently, my PR on bench is 135. My PR on squat is 225, and then my PR on deadlift is 245. But I think that will definitely go up.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you guys, Sam, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. Go and give her a follow. All the links down below. This is DD on the Spot. Ryan Johnson signing out. Have a great day, everyone.